Hi everyone, and welcome to another video of Linux for absolutely beginners. My name is Tia from DevOps Easy Learning, and today we'll be going through the tar, the zip, and unzip command in Linux, right? Why this command? Let's say you want to back up something, because these are really useful when it comes to backup. Let's say you have a storage in the cloud and you have a bunch of files basically stored on the server, and you want to kind of copy those files and put those files in a storage, maybe in the cloud. What are you going to do? You need to make sure that you zip those files, right? In Windows World, we always say we zip, and when you zip that, it will just package everything. Same thing like when you are maybe in the airport, you want to travel, they will make sure that they take your bag, right? Let's say you have a bag that have a moving part. What are they going to do? They will make sure that they put tape on that bag everywhere, so that the bag will be really solid, especially for those who travel back home. When you guys are coming back here in US, if you have a bag that have some moving part, what are they going to do? They'll put tape and wrap around the entire bag, so that it will be really solid, and it's ready to be shipped, right? Same thing apply here even in Linux. Let's say you have a bunch of files. Those files are not, you want to compact everything so that you can ship it. What are you going to do? You can use stuff like a zip, or you can use stuff like a tar command, which is just a built-in command line tool that you can use in Linux to compress a directory, right? And if you don't want to use this built-in command line tool, you can go ahead and use a third-party tool that we have in Linux called a zip command, right? This one exists in Windows. If you're a Windows user, you just need to download stuff like a WinRAR, and when you have WinRAR on your local machine, you can use a WinRAR to go ahead and do what? To zip that file. And when you zip it, it will go ahead and compress the file, reduce the size, so that you can go ahead and store it somewhere. Let us see a couple of some options that we have here, right? And the zip is just a third-party tool. That means it is a package that needs to be installed in Linux operating system. If you don't have it installed, if you're on Ubuntu, you just need to use a package manager to install the zip command line tool here. Here, this is one example here. How do you zip a file, a folder, a directory in Linux? You say zip -r, and you go ahead here and say, okay, this is the directory that you want to zip, and this should be the name, right? When you zip a directory, you can either give the same name or you can change the name. Let's say the directory that I want to zip is called tia-devops. I can either zip it and call it tia-devops.zip, or I can go ahead and just call that and give and use another name. It doesn't really matter. Please be very careful with this thing here called -r. What happened here with -r is that it means recursive. Please include the content of this directory while zipping. If you don't put -r, what happen is that zip is going to zip an empty directory and basically give it to you. And this happened to me in the real world, but I was lucky that I found out, right? Let's say you have a very important directory, and you want to zip that directory and store that maybe in S3 bucket. You zip it you zip that directory without putting -r, where Linux will go ahead here and zip an empty directory and give it to you. And let's say you delete the main directory thinking that everything was already zipped out. You are dead, right? Be very careful. And also unzip, if you zip it and you want to unzip it, just use the unzip, and you can go ahead here and give the file that you want to unzip, and that's it. The tar command, right? Like I said, it's a built-in command line tool in Linux that you can use also to zip and unzip directory, to compress, or that will say compress, or that will say zip, and those terms just basically mean the same thing. But the zip here have couple of options though. We have -c, which means create new file, -v, which stand for verbose, -x, which stand for extract, because if you want to extract, as you guys can see here, you have -x here to extract. And if you want to zip, you don't need to actually add -x, right? We also have -p, which can stand for preserve permission, because files and directory also have permission, right? And we have that Z, which stand for compress. As you guys can see here, dash Z here stand for compress, dash P here stand for preserve the permission, dash C here stand for create a new archive, and dash F basically stand for file name. Very important. Now, the naming file, if you like, you can kind of zip something, you append a date. Let's say you want to append a date format with date and time. That is where you can use this specific syntax, right? And PS, very, very useful. Use -R for zip to avoid zipping an empty directory. And I will show you guys this. It is really, really important that you should understand this. Let us go to our command line here and see what we can do. And before you move on here, you should have a Linux server already set up, and make sure that you have access to that server. Here, I'm going to log in into one of our Linux server here, which is server 4, and I'm going to punch my password here, and it will log me in. And when we are in, we'll see what we can do. ls. I have one folder here. You can use anything that you want, but I'm going to create a directory here, mkdir, and I'm going to create, I'll call that directory mkdir, and I'm going to call that directory maybe zip, and I'm going to copy. When I call that zip ls, the zip is here. I'll copy the cp. I'm going to copy cp-r. I'm going to copy this directory here. You can use anything that you want, and I'm going to put it in the one that I created called zip. Cool. Let me now cd into zip, the zip directory, and let me tab, into the zip directory. We are here. Let us tab ls. Now let me kind of check the size of this raw directory, right? I mean, it's not yet, I haven't zipped it. If you go ahead here and check the size, and just use the this usage, this is the command that we use to check the size, and I will say have an sh, and go ahead and give this specific directory name. As you can see here, the directory name, this directory is like 12 MB so far. 12 MB so far. Now let us go ahead and kind of zip this directory. If you do this, check this out. I'm going to first of all zip. Let us go ahead and tab ls, and we see the content of this directory. As you guys can see, this directory basically we have contents. Let me do this. I'll go ahead here and zip it. Zip. We say zip, and we can say -R here. We stand for recursive. We want to zip this directory, this one. And what is the name that we are going to give? We can still go ahead here and we can put .zip without changing the name, and go ahead here and say this is the actual directory that we want to zip. As you can see, the zip command line tool is not installed, and I will go ahead. And what is good about Ubuntu is that it say, hey, this command, this tool is not installed. Go ahead and install it, and I will go ahead and install it. -Y. I'm working as a regular user, which means I need to use sudo and my password, and it will go ahead and install the zip command line tool. And once that is installed, we'll go ahead and move on. Now, very soon, it will be done. It is done. Let me record the same command that I type here. As you guys can see, it basically zipped that. And if you check this, as you guys can see here, we have one folder here, which is not a zip folder. If we are trying to check this usage have an sh. Let us go ahead and check the size of this and let us check the size of the zip one and see what is the difference. As you guys can see, it basically cut down the size, and that's what I told you guys. Let's say you were having like 10 gig. If you kind of zip it, you see that you are going to save a lot of storage, right? Because 12 gigs basically move to 10 gigs. Now, let us go ahead here and do something else. ls. Now, I'm going to take this thing now, and I will use a tar to zip it. What is the syntax of the tar command, which is a built-in command line tool in Linux? We just say tar, and we can go ahead here and give what? Let me go ahead here, just copy this tar and the target that we want and the directory that we want. I will say tar. This is the folder that we want. I'll go ahead and give the name, and I will just call this one maybe section1.tar, section1, and I will say .tar, and what is the actual folder that we want to zip? We want to zip this folder, and I change the name. And if you hit enter here, ls, you can see section1.tar, or you don't, it's not mandatory that you change the name, right? You can just go ahead here and you say tar, and you say you want to take this specific directory. This is the one, and you can just say that, and here you can go ahead here and say .tar, and this is the folder that you want to compress. If you hit enter and tap ls, we have that. Now let us check size again. This usage, I will say -sh, and I'm going to check this one. First of all, we know the size of this. Now let us go ahead and use the .zip. Let us go ahead and use the .tar. The .tar, as you guys can see here, when we use a zip, a tar even cut down the size more than zip, right? A tar, which is a built-in command line tool for Linux, basically cut down the size even more than zip, which is absolutely great, right? Now, how can we unzip this? I'll go ahead now and say rm-rf. I'm going to remove this one. That was the main one. ls is not there no more. How can we unzip that? With zip, we just use the unzip command line tool. We just use unzip, and we'll go ahead and say we want to unzip this. Hit enter. As you guys can see, that folder is there, and we can go ahead here and tap ls again and see what's in here. You can see. Now let me go ahead here and remove that folder again, and I will unzip the one that we zip it here with the tar command, right? How can we do that? We just need to make sure that we use the X in front and the one that we want. Let me go ahead and punch this, and we want to go ahead and unzip this one. That is the tar syntax. Hit enter here, tab ls, it is there. Like we can say ls, and we'll be able to see this, right? Everything is there. Now, ls, let me go ahead and say rm-rf, and I'll go ahead and remove this one. I'll remove all these three. ls, we have just one. I'm going to zip it again one more time, and pay close attention. Zip, and I'm not going to put -r. First of all, let us check the content. ls dash ls, and I'm going to just check this directory. As you guys can see, we have a content. Cool. Let me go ahead now and zip it back. I will say zip, but I'm not going to put -r. I want to zip this folder. I want to call it .txt, and that is the actual folder. Is .zip. Oops, we don't need to put .txt, right? We need to put .zip. Now, if you hit enter, as you guys can see, it say sorted 0%. What happened? It's showing you that they have a zip file, right? Let us go ahead and remove this one, which basically have a content with rm-rf. This one here have a content, and ls. Let us also type this usage, that's -sh, and see what is the size of this zip file. As you guys can see, it is 4K. Let us now go ahead and unzip and see what is in there. Unzip, and let us check the size of this. Wow. ls, it looks like something is there. Let us go ahead and list the content of this directory. There is nothing in that directory. What does that mean? This means when you zip something without pushing, if you don't put -r, what happen is that it will go ahead and zip an empty folder and give it to you. Right now, let's say I wipe out the content of section 1 development because I zip it already, and I zip it without half an R, which means that right now I don't have anything. all the content, they are gone. I cannot find this no more. It is gone forever. Where are you going to find this? Be very, very careful. This happened to me in the real world. I don't want this to happen to you. But I didn't lose those content, but I was about to lose it. Be very, very careful while using zip. Make sure that you want to zip a directory, that you are using dash R, which stand for recursive, to zip this, right? And when you want to unzip, there is no issue. But when you are using the tag command, you don't have any issue. Be careful with this. That's it for this video, guys. If you like this video, please let me know in the comment below. And also, if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go ahead and do so, so that you will be notified when we publish a new video. Thank you. Bye bye.